Rapper and record producer Kanye West alleges in a bombshell legal letter that his dentist got him hooked on nitrous oxide, laughing gas, and he plans to sue for all the damage this seemingly caused him. It is a wild new set of allegations, and we will analyze all the claims and ask, if true, does this explain the recent controversial moments from the music artist? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Have you ever gone to the dentist and they give you nitrous oxide laughing gas? I had my wisdom tooth taken out last year. They gave it to me. Honestly, not the worst thing when you're getting a tooth removed, but it's pretty simple, straightforward, right? Well, what happens if you sue over it? Yeah, you claim that it was excessive, it was damaging, you became addicted, and, oh, by the way, you claim it was all done to get your money. Now, if you're saying yes to those questions, are you Kanye West? I wonder if you are, because that's exactly what he's planning to sue over right now. In a notice of intent to sue letter that we got our hands on and that was seemingly drafted by West's lawyer and sent to the rapper's celebrity dentist, maybe former dentist, Dr. Thomas Connelly, West and his wife, Bianca Censori, are indicating that they plan to file a lawsuit against him for a whole array of claims. In fact, in an accompanying press release from West company Yeezy, it reads, Ye and his wife Bianca serve Beverly Hills dentist Dr. Thomas Connelly notice today. They are suing him for medical malpractice, gross negligence, fraud, exploitation, abandonment, psychological and emotional trauma, reckless administration of controlled and uncontrolled substances, and other malicious and deceitful behaviors. So you might be saying, what is going on here? Are these legitimate claims? Well, let's talk about it. So first and foremost, it's our understanding that under California law, a healthcare provider has to be provided 90 days notice of a future legal action in order for there to be a viable lawsuit. But more importantly, this legal notice, this letter, was seemingly drafted by a friend of mine, friend of Law&Crime, used to be on a bunch, Andrew Cherkasky of Golden Law. Actually, messaged with him last night. He confirmed with me he is representing Kanye West. This is an authentic letter, according to Andrew. And it reads, quote, your conduct fell egregiously below the applicable standard of care and violated both your legal duties and professional obligations, causing substantial harm to our clients. So the letter begins by explaining how Kanye West became a patient of Dr. Connelly's in 2024. Apparently, the doctor performed all kinds of dental work for him, including the insertion of this custom titanium crown. Page 6 reporting that it's worth $850,000. Now, the allegation is that from 2024 through 2025, Dr. Connelly engaged in a pattern of improper conduct. Like what? Quote, you repeatedly administered or supplied nitrous oxide, laughing gas, and or other sedative substances to Ye in quantities and frequencies that had no legitimate dental or medical justification, including, quote, for recreational use. The accusation here is that the doctor even supplied large, quote, surgical-size nitrous oxide tanks to West's home with masks and taught West how to self-administer this with no supervision. And there's also the claim that Dr. Connelly was told to stop doing this but refused. It's unclear who told Dr. Connelly to stop, but that's what this notice of intent seems to state. And Connelly allegedly even knew the apparent detrimental effects the gas was having on Kanye West, but the letter alleges that as a result of this nitrous oxide use, West began to show signs of neurological issues, erratic behavior, confusion, memory lapses, incoherence, unpredictable changes in mood, impaired motor function, other cognitive and behavioral impairments, but yet Connelly is accused of continuing to supply it or not doing anything to stop it. And how do you prove this, right? Well, how do you prove it? Well, the letter alleges that, quote, on multiple occasions, Dr. Connelly acknowledged in writing that his treatment of West was improper and that he apologized in texts and emails to West and Censori for making mistakes in treatment decisions. And in terms of an alleged motive, the letter claims that Dr. Connelly charged $50,000 a month for continuing to supply the gas under the guise of legitimate dental treatment or anesthesia. Namely, the accusation is that he was engaging in exploitation for profit. Actually, in the accompanying press release, it alleges in spring 2024, Connelly attempted to seize control of global music and fashion brand Yeezy LLC, while its principal, Ye, was incapacitated with a cocktail of controlled and uncontrolled substances. Moreover, Dr. Connelly is accused of improperly administering the sedative, the anesthetic, propofol to Kanye West outside of a medical setting, including allegedly at a hotel in Las Vegas. Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. So if you're a child diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. The letter continues, after subjecting Ye to the aforementioned, you subsequently withdrew from his care abruptly and without proper notice of transition. You failed to ensure that Ye received any follow-up medical care, detoxification, or referral to specialists to address the nitrous oxide dependency and neurological damage that you negligently, recklessly, or knowingly caused. You abandoned your patient at a time when he was in dire need of care. This abandonment violated your professional and ethical obligations to your patient. And it is alleged that West suffered neurological and physical injury, psychological, emotional harm, chemical dependency, financial harm, economic loss, loss of consortium, meaning Censori lost the companionship, the support, the services of her husband during this time. And towards the very end of the letter, there is a demand that Dr. Connelly provide copies of West's dental and medical records, preserve all evidence, including communications, billing records, contracts. Okay, a lot to get into here. So let me bring in right now criminal defense attorney Michael Gottlieb to talk more about this. Michael, thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar. Wow, quite the allegations in this letter. Let me just first start off. What are your general thoughts at reading this?
So my first reaction was, yeah, Kanye has definitely lost his mind. Kanye has, I think the world kind of knows that. And then I was, I sort of scratched my head and said, a lot of that was before 2024 because these allegations are in 2024. I recall that in 2022, Adidas dropped Kanye. So, I think anytime a civil lawyer looks at a case like this, you look for liability and damages. Okay. So while you may have admissions from, Dr. Connelly, who is a well-known, well-respected boutique dentist, is known to charge these kinds of monies because he's got a star clientele. Maybe he made some admissions that his standard of care wasn't perfect, but at the same point in time, I don't know that he can be blamed for the mental decline of Kanye West, which is something that we've seen in the public for at least 10 years.
Well, yeah, to be clear, they haven't made that direct connection, right, Michael? They haven't said, oh, because of the nitrous oxide, that's why he went on alleged anti-Semitic rants, right? And I agree with you. The first thing I thought was, this is so interesting. Does this explain a lot of the erratic behavior that we've been seeing? And what do I mean by that? I mean, one of the things, for starters, he purchases this Super Bowl ad, Kanye, where he said, I spent like all the money for the commercial on these new teeth. Once again, I had to shoot it on the iPhone. Go to Yeezy.com. And if you went to Yeezy.com at the time, it featured a T-shirt with a swastika. And we know that he's been accused of making a series of controversial anti-Semitic comments. But I guess maybe explains a little bit of the behavior at that time. I'm not sure. Maybe because he could be suffering the detriments of it that we just didn't see.
Absolutely. So, I read the demand letter, and the demand letter seemingly talks about the loss of business relationships. I mean, look, you can sue for loss of consortium. You're not going to get deep money. So if you're looking for a significant amount of money, or maybe he doesn't really care about money, Kanye has money. Maybe he's looking to make this lawsuit to cover his most recent erratic behavior and then have sort of, the doctor to blame for it. And then Kanye sort of rebuilds his reputation out of this lawsuit by blaming it on the addiction to this over-the-counter medication.
How, if you know this, how successful are lawsuits where you're claiming someone else got you hooked or addicted to something? Because I wonder if a jury or a court would say, wait a minute, you have to take some ownership in this as well. You had to recognize that, this was your own doing as well. You voluntarily allowed the tanks to allegedly be delivered to your home. But then again, on the other hand, you could say, I was supplied so much nitrous oxide that I became addicted. I didn't want this at first, but I had no choice. Again, there's still a lot more details that need to be fleshed out, but blaming someone for your addiction, are those claims you see a lot?
So I have a sort of unique perspective on this in that I'm in recovery. And, I don't think I can blame, the liquor companies and the beer companies for making me drink or for any other substances or anything like that. It's with you. And when you talk about somebody like Kanye, yeah, there's no doubt that there's drug pushers and they're claiming Connelly is a drug pusher. But at the same point in time, you're talking about a person who is surrounded by a team of people all day long. These are people who are watching him put together his Super Bowl ad, giving him guidance. So to say this one person in his life was, supplying him with drugs and is the genesis of his addiction, I think you're going to have a hard time selling that when there's so many other people involved in Kanye's life. And again, addiction is something that, while many people get involved because somebody pushes the drug on them, we learn in recovery, just for today, don't pick up today, don't use today. You have the ability to turn that down. And this is not a significant controlled substance. It's an over-the-counter substance. It's not as addictive as cocaine or alcohol. In California, the possession of this is a misdemeanor.
First of all, Michael, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea, and congratulations on your journey. It's not easy, and I think you really articulated it quite well, what the complications of this could be. I can't have you on and not ask, is this a crime, right? I mean, here, one of the things you always wonder in a case like this is, A, is this a crime, if these allegations are true? B, how come I haven't seen anything at this point to suggest Kanye West went to law enforcement?
So, yeah, one of the first things I thought of is, why didn't they go to law enforcement first? Why file a demand letter, hold a press conference, unless it's some kind of squeeze play for money, which we know, again, that Kanye probably doesn't need, or, again, he's trying to fix his reputation. In California, possession of nitrous is a misdemeanor. But I think the larger problem would be if Dr. Connelly is not allowed to practice medicine outside California, if he prescribed medications or took medications, let's say to Las Vegas, if he doesn't have a license to practice there, that could be either a federal crime or certainly a crime in Las Vegas, depending on the schedule of the medications that he prescribed. So, yeah, I think there's definite issues. And if I can add one other thing to that, I thought it was interesting in what I read, which is, if Kanye's claiming that he was addicted, he hasn't yet been for treatment, seemingly, or at least the letters and all the indicators. I just think it diminishes his claim to say, hey, you got me hooked on and addicted to this stuff in 2024. Here we are almost halfway through 2025. If the addiction is so pervasive, why hasn't he sought treatment?
Well, Michael, so the only thing is, I'm pulling up the letter and it says he has to undergo or plans to undergo medical intervention to detoxify and recover from this dependency. The road to recovery from this induced addiction has caused and will continue to cause pain, suffering, and significant disruption to his life.
I mean, that's written like a very good plaintiff's lawyer seeking damages. It's incredibly obtuse, in my opinion. Either he did engage in medical intervention or he plans to. Which is it? And I think if he hasn't yet, it certainly diminishes any recovery he might be seeking, as well as, underscores his case in its entirety.
Well, going back to the idea of, could this be a crime? Because just to put everything in context for a second. So Dr. Connelly, very well-known dentist, apparently. You go to his website, ManSmile, it says Dr. Thomas Connelly is a pioneer in luxury cosmetic dentistry, crafting multi-million-dollar smiles for some of the world's most influential figures in entertainment and sports. With 25 years of expertise in locations in Soho, NYC, Beverly Hills, Dr. Connelly's precision and artistry are sought after worldwide. His extensive training includes the Mayo Clinic, University of Detroit Mercy, and Louisiana State University, and he has served as a clinical professor at Harvard University Dental School and Columbia School of Dental Medicine. And apparently he's worked closely with celebrities like Post Malone, Von Miller, featuring their custom mouthpieces on social media, huge photos on the walls of his office. But this wasn't the first time this accusation came up, because West and Censori's representative, this described right-wing political figure, Milo Yiannopoulos, I might be mispronouncing his name, I apologize, made an allegation this past summer on X, posting that Dr. Connelly was intent on, quote, diminishing Ye's mental faculties so that Connelly and his business associates could extract millions of dollars from him. He reportedly also filed an affidavit with the California Dental Board alleging that the doctor charges rappers and cartel bosses for natural stones but puts vastly cheaper lab-grown diamonds in their mouths instead. And according to reporting from The Hollywood Reporter, Milo claimed that a Yeezy employee actually saw these nitrous oxide tanks being brought to Censori's apartment, several employees allegedly taking photos of them being installed. And now apparently Connelly claimed they were all empty, and a representative for the doctor said at the time that this allegation was made that this version of events were not only factually incorrect, but also intentionally misleading. So Michael, I mean, this has amplified what the motive would be here. And it makes me wonder, are we talking, I mean, they've accused him of fraud in the legal papers, but again, going to a criminal case, what is it expand beyond the charges we're talking about, more than just a license?
You know, from my perspective, those are just allegations. I don't know how you make the leap to you got him addicted and then you were trying to sort of take over his empire or, take money from him. I don't know what the demand letter didn't specify what evidence they have in that regard. It talked about the admissions he's made for perhaps overprescribing, delivering the tanks, and the things that you just mentioned. But I don't know how you get from there to taking over, his empire. It seems tenuous, but again, these are demand letters that are intended to, number one, the 90-day rule, get your insurance in order. Let us see what you have. Let us see if it's worthwhile suing. Number two, give you the opportunity to respond and see if you want to resolve this quickly. So you're going to put the strongest, ugliest demand letter you can together. And as well, when you put this out there in the public eye, you want to give an incentive for the doctor to resolve this and resolve it quietly so that these egregious claims go away as quickly as possible.
Doesn't it make it really tough for him to resolve this? Because if he doesn't fight it, it's his reputation on the line. I mean, these are serious allegations. If he were to end up settling it, resolving it, I wonder what impact that might have. Or alternatively, somebody could look at this and say, Kanye West, erratic guy. These are wild allegations. I'm not going to take him as true. Although, again, this was drafted by Andrew Cherkasky. He's a great lawyer. I know him. So it's not like, Kanye West drafted this himself. So there is something to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Cherkasky's reputation, the kind of lawyer that he is, definitely lends credibility to a claim such as this. But you have probably one of the worst clients that you would want to have because, as I said before, his mental decline was long before this. He's got plenty of handlers to watch what he's doing and has been doing. And I think when you look at a claim like this, I think Connelly, who, has hundreds of people who he's put veneers on, or as you said, other rappers or artists that he's put diamonds in their mouth. There's a lot of people who are going to say this guy never engaged in any kind of conduct like that towards me, never pushed anything on me, has been nothing but professional. So I think in a case like this, you resolve it quietly, file an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and both people move on with their lives. It'll hurt financially, but people forget in 15 minutes.
Let's talk about that response. So, by the way, on X, there were more posts that were shared about this intended lawsuit from Milo that I mentioned before, because he wrote, I noticed Ye's behavior changing in April and May of 2024 and attempted to intervene unsuccessfully this first time. Even with the affidavit a few months later, it has been more or less my word against Connelly's until now. I feel enormous relief and joy that Connelly will at last get what is coming to him now. Ye and Bianca are as a couple holding him to account. Always do the brave and necessary thing when a friend is in danger. It's an action you can't come back from. What do you expect, putting aside the idea of resolving this, right, and an NDA, if he wants to file a legal response to this, Dr. Connelly, how do you think he would challenge this? What do you think he would say? And by the way, could he file for defamation? Because I know there's a litigation privilege. You can't just file a defamation lawsuit against somebody who makes accusations against you in a civil lawsuit. Otherwise, there would be no civil lawsuits. But what could be his legal response other than trying to settle this and have an NDA signed?
Yeah, I would expect a fairly aggressive initial response, because somebody like him who has a public image, you want to ring that bell loud and clear. cases like this, tomorrow you'll be reporting on something else and this case won't be in the news as loud, and when they resolve it 6 or 8 months down the road, people are going to remember the initial response that he had, and we tend not to pay so much attention to the resolution. So I would expect a very vigorous response, perhaps something claiming that these allegations are false, spurious, and defamatory in nature, and a potential countersuit type allegation. Absolutely.
Would there be legitimate uses to doing this? Because let's say, for example, there were communications where he apologized, and let's assume there were deliveries of nitrous tanks. Is there any legitimate use of doing this? I mean, on the part of Dr. Connelly, what would a defense be other than saying this is totally inaccurate, nothing like this happened, everything's being mischaracterized, I never had tanks delivered? Could there be a legitimate explanation, you think?
I mean, other than a legitimate medical use, it's a quasi-benign party drug. People fill it into balloons, take hits, and it gives you a euphoric effect, for a few minutes. But I'm not sure that that's a legitimate use.
Yeah.
It's just something, you see at concerts and, for party purposes. But again, it's not a controlled substance nationally. California, like I said, criminalizes it, but it's not scheduled 1, 2, or 3. It's not considered to be that harmful. It's an over-the-counter medication, if you will. So I suppose one could argue for its euphoric effect. Yeah, it's got a legitimate use in the home beyond its use in dentistry.
One more thing I wanted to ask you was about the preservation notice part of it, right? Preserve all records, communications. Talk to us about the importance of that. And if somebody, assuming Dr. Connelly or another defendant didn't know they were about to be sued, I imagine during the course of business, things get deleted. So talk to us about the purpose of those preservation notices, why they're important, and what happens if somebody, deleted information, not necessarily because they knew they were about to be sued, but normal course of business.
He probably would have wanted to get rid of whatever communications he had. But let's understand that, when you communicate on an electronic device, there's always the recipient's receipt of that communication. But yeah, anytime you want to file a suit like this, a preservation letter is key because you want to use somebody else's words against them. That is pretty damning evidence, especially admissions. And when you're getting it from their phone, their source, it's very difficult for them to say, well, you made that up, that's fabricated, that was spoofed, or some kind of claim like that. So preservation letters are a great way of showing we're serious, we mean what we're saying, you have this evidence, and this evidence will come out in court from your side of the case, from your mouth, and that's going to hurt you.
Michael Gottlieb, I got to say, we booked you for a different topic, but, this broke. It's not every day Kanye West sues his former dentist for nitrous oxide addiction, and you roll with the punches. You came in. I really, really appreciate your terrific insight on this case, and let's see where it goes. Maybe it will wrap up. Maybe we will see a legal response. Maybe this will all be dropped. I don't know. It is just a wild headline and some very serious allegations here, and we take them very seriously here at Law&Crime. Michael Gottlieb, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.